This is the Wealth Roundup with Patrick Leonard from the Leonard Wealth Advisory Group of BMO Nesbitt Burns. Any postings and or social media content are the views of the advisor and do not necessarily reflect BMO's position or viewpoint. The information herein is for Canadian residents only and does not constitute any financial, legal, tax, investment, or other advice. It's the Wealth Roundup for the week of December 11th, 2025. I'm Terry Evans, along with Patrick Leonard from the Leonard Wealth Advisory Group of BMO Nesbitt Burns. All right, Patrick, we're getting close to Christmas. Time to start thinking about all of the stockings hung with care and whatnot. What are we looking at with the markets as we get closer to the holiday season?
Yeah, well, since you're talking about stockings, when we look at stocks, kind of since the last time we did our podcast, is that I would say relatively flat. S&P 500 and TSX, they're up modestly today. But, compared to some of the other kind of week over week, is that it's been relatively quiet. Gold is kind of working its way back after selling below 4,000 about a month ago. Bitcoin up again today, but still down about 10% over the last month. The big thing this week is tomorrow we get decisions from our central banks, the Fed and Bank of Canada. And so our house view here at BMO is U.S. likely to drop rates by 1/4 point. So with the Fed seeing their interest rates as still being restrictive, much higher than Canadian rates, and the Bank of Canada being on hold. I think one other really important item that occurred last week is the Canadian banks came in with their earnings, and for the most part, beat expectations. So that's great, and provided constructive guidance about next year. So when we think about starting to create a bit of a forecast about our expectations for 2026, our listeners, we always kind of talk about fundamentals leading to higher stock prices. So the banks make about 50% of their income on interest rate spreads. So the difference between what they charge borrowers versus what they pay depositors. And so as interest rates have come down, longer term interest rates have stayed high, is that they tend to borrow out at long-term rates and tend to pay depositors closer to shorter term rates. So we expect that to carry into 2026. So, the Canadian banks are a big part of the TSX. So the Canadian banks being profitable, loan losses holding the line. We're constructive on the Canadian banks for next year.
Good. With investing and saving, everybody wants to keep as much money as they possibly can in their pants or their purse, but there are expenses that go along with that, everything from taxes to actually living out your retirement and housing. Today, we've got a guest again who is going to talk about trends, innovations, and project planning for homes and how that correlates and is connected to retirement.
Yeah, Terry, I'm really pleased to welcome Sheldon Small to the Wealth Roundup. I've known Sheldon and his family for well over 30 years. Sheldon and his wife, Paula, they own and operate a local business called Iron River Surfaces, and they focus in surfaces, something like flooring, but not limited to flooring, design, and I see them as experts in their field. And so I've asked Sheldon to join the podcast today to talk about trends and products, innovation in this particular space, because I often get asked for advice when my clients are talking about their housing plans. Often it's downsizing, but more often now it's talking about this idea of aging in place, looking at their homes, getting their homes ready, yes, to meet their current needs, but thinking about their future needs. So welcome, Sheldon, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, well, and Sheldon, you and I have known each other for a very long time as well. It's great to reconnect. And, the things that Patrick is talking about, aging in place or downsizing or maybe going into a bigger place, a newer place or something like that, staying in a place that you've had for many years and renovating or going to a new build. I've done it all.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
It's
Yes, you
been a
have.
little ridiculous. I've gone from building brand new to finding a house that was older than me into a condo and back into a house that's 20, 25 years old. What are the trends that we're seeing right now as people get closer to retirement? Are obviously empty nesters and aging in place.
And then for sure, that's a great question, Terry. And what we're seeing a lot of right now is right sizing, is what I like to call it. So often, kids have moved out, and now is the time to start thinking, are we going to stay where we are because we love our neighborhood and we love our the people next door, and we love the big trees in that sort of thing, and we want to make sure that we're able to stay where we are and renovate in place? Or do we look to downsizing into a home that we still want to keep nice finishings for longevity and good return on our investment that way? So it's really it's twofold there. It's a big thing for clients right now, whether they're wanting to go one way or the other.
I was going to say, what are some of the driving factors that end up dictating where somebody will be living out their retirement? But I think you nailed a couple of them right there. In particular, the neighborhood that they've become accustomed to, and maybe a circle of friends in the spot that they're at, and finding why in particular would you want people to go to you as far as renovations and building and aging in place is concerned.
So Iron River Surfaces, we have a fantastic team in place that understands and really tries to qualify what the client's looking for and what their needs are at that stage in life. Are they looking to age in place? Are they looking to clean up their home? And what I mean by that is just put in some new floors, get it on the market. And that's where we can step in and with our design team, and depending on the scope of work, bring in a general contractor or be the general contractor ourselves often, and take you to the finish line, and making sure at the same time that all the way through it, we're holding your hand, and you're not just a transaction, but instead of an experience with Iron River Surfaces. And that's really what we focus on, is that mid to high end market, Terry, where we still have entry level products, but at the same time, everything in between, to make sure that we're satisfying what that client's looking for, and understanding their needs of how they're going to live on that floor, and aesthetically pleasing too at the same time.
I suppose also with the fact that kids becoming adults, moving out, maybe you had a house that had two or three bedrooms on the main floor, but you want to put in an ensuite now that the kids are out and on their own. So you end up taking one of the bedrooms and making a walk-in closet or an ensuite to go with a primary bedroom or something like that. These are some of the considerations that people look at with a home that might be older. I know we did that with a house that was built in 1963. And then we've recently sold that back in June and moved into a place that was much newer, where we've given ourselves a little bit more elbow room, a little more room to spread around. Even though it's just the two of us, we don't have our two kids with us, but there seems to be a lot of cat everywhere in our house. But just having those little luxuries that may not have been there when you have kids in the house are really, an improvement on your retirement and maybe mobility stuff as well.
Absolutely. What we're seeing a lot of right now is, especially in a two-story, often we'll have clients put in a bathroom on the main floor, whether they have elderly family join them to live with them for the last years of their life, or in many circumstances where people have surgery and now they need a place to be able to bathe on the main floor because they're not be able to get to the second level. So we're seeing offices and dens turn into bedrooms and adding bathrooms onto those, which is becoming more and more popular. But just the way we use our home is changing too, and especially if you're looking to stay in those nice neighborhoods that you've created those relationships are, and where you feel comfortable living. Maybe there's family close by. So a lot of those different factors we're seeing that are keeping people in those neighborhoods longer, and then aging in place. So when we look at adding those bathrooms, are they looking at adding barrier free? So for longevity, be able to get in there with a walker or a wheelchair with proper grab bars and the clearance required to be able to get through in those doorways with proper height on benches. So just having the clearances and really thinking through where long term you're going to be within that home becomes a big deciding factor also.
Just some of the things that you just touched on there, I suppose they might come into play with multi-generational homes. What kind of obstacles have you run into, or has everything been smooth sailing for developing multi-generational homes from either new or existing homes?
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot right now, Terry. I would say that over 50% of the new high end builds right now are being built with elevators with that in mind. Clients thinking, whether they're in their 30s, even that they're seeing a long term play in that home, or they have relatives that are aging that they would like to see join them within that home, where they're building a live in suite, either on the main floor or basement, but having that elevator accessibility. We're on a really unique project right now where, just overlooking the river, where a client has built a home with a garden on the top of the roof because their father that they're going to have live with them is big into gardening. So they wanted to be able to have it where he gets to enjoy still that those last years of his life being able to garden. So they did a big raised garden feature that he's going to be able to enjoy the sunshine and still garden, but be a part of living with the family to still care for him.
When people come to you with an idea or thoughts of renovation of an existing house or building a new house, what are the three most common questions that you ask them?
The three would be lifestyle, aesthetic, and budget. And when I think of lifestyle, it's how are you going to live within that home? Do you have pets? Do you have grandchildren? Do you have children? And it really comes down to, and also how long are you going to be there for? So that really helps us direct the conversation in which way we're going to go for the type of surfaces or floor covering that we're going to put into those areas. Natural stone being, a little more maintenance, but still long term. Hardwood, same thing. We're able to have that for over 100 years, and you can refinish it. Where some of the vinyl planks on the market right now, they're just a disposable product at the end of the day. So we really like to make sure we're qualifying how that client's going to live, first of all, on that floor. Aesthetically pleasing being the second one, we want to make sure that it's their style. So is it a farmhouse style? Is it a modern, contemporary, transitional? So really identifying what they're looking for the style of that. And then I guess, at the end of the day, it comes down to budget. And as I mentioned before, the high and lows is really important to us. We do feel that even if you have a smaller budget, it's important to have a beautiful home at the end of the day. And at Iron River Surfaces, we really pride ourselves on having every level of offering, whether it be the entry level, the mid, or the high end for someone who's really looking for something that stands out, unique on the market, exclusive to them, or made handmade tiles with special colors that they chose. So really just figuring out what works within their budget, but still be able to create that special home.
What about the importance of reputable companies doing the work? Obviously, you are not going to get all of the work that is available, as much as you'd like to have all of the work
Absolutely.
available. But there's some important things that people should know and adhere to when it comes to reputable builders. I mean, it's one thing to get your friend's cousin do the work, but in the long run, it can be more expensive. There's the importance of permits, making sure that everything is up to code and everything. And that's something that is probably top of mind for every outfit that is renovating homes these days.
And that is a fantastic point. And I couldn't agree with you more. It is so important to choose the right qualified trades. We really believe in you get what you pay for when it comes to installers and contractors out there, making sure that the process feels right all the way through. And end of the day, choosing someone that has a reputation and the Google reviews are another big thing, right? Just seeing to make sure the feedback that other customers have experienced and don't be afraid to ask for referrals or where can we see some of your work and be able to go to a show home or a lottery home and see the work that's taken place and really look for how installation was done. Don't be afraid to ask those questions and really make sure you're vetting who you're putting in your home to do the work. If it's the cheapest price, often you're going to see that and it's going to reflect in the workmanship and craftsmanship of what you're seeing in the final result. I always believe in the couple 2 to 3 proposals is not a bad thing to ask for, just to make sure that you're feeling comfortable with what's being proposed at the end of the day for your budget and for your work that you're getting done.
Aging in place, upsizing, downsizing, staying in the same neighborhood, multi-generational. There's so many different columns and boxes that you could tick through all of this, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that it's all investment, and that comes back to you, Patrick. Anything else to add for Sheldon?
Well, as I mentioned, Sheldon and Paul, they did a renovation at our place. We kind of went into that project with a budget. And so we ended up really getting where things, I think, where we could really see the value of working with them is that they were able to take a look at our budget and be able to say, how can we maximize the outcome from the budget we were working with? But they also gave us considerations for things that were going to be really good investments if we expanded our budget. And this idea of taking advantage of the fact that we were going to have Sheldon and Paul's team in the house, plus some other contractors in the house. So being flexible, but working with kind of an experienced team that could kind of talk about what the impact to the final cost was going to be. And just talking to Sheldon about coming on this podcast today is that finance people that are kind of helping clients manage their money, we never talk to the designers or the contractors, right? And so, our clients are kind of in the middle. And so the thought today was to be able to get some insight into kind of what people are doing, with the idea of their homes, to be able to kind of talk about what's important, the important considerations, just to kind of get to know what, a team like Sheldon is going to ask a person once they kind of start a project. But I think Sheldon would probably say that this idea with the budget is to be flexible, to ask for projections, to know that probably the costs are going to be higher than person expects, right, Sheldon? Probably. They're rarely lower. And yeah, so I'd maybe ask Sheldon if you had any kind of final thoughts on just, when people are thinking about their budget, is if there's like one or two kind of recommendations that you would have with regards to just that budget and then working with, say, a company like yours.
I think transparency, Patrick, is probably the biggest thing. Making sure that that budget is transparent with your contractor, and is there room to grow from that or isn't there? And I think that's really important, the transparency and that relationship between contractor and homeowner. End of the day, it's going to make for a good outcome and a positive relationship versus the other way that it could go. And I think it's always important to build in a little bit of a contingency. And I think that it's important always to make sure that we're offering a good, better, and best option, where that way it's really in the client's hands, knowing all the features and benefits of what each item might be and what that looks like to them at the end of the day and how that adds value to their home. And to have that budget in place while you're working through that whole process with your contractor.
Now, Patrick, one last thing that I wanted to ask is it's probably a case-by-case basis. It's going to be different for one individual or one couple to, the next. But what about taking your investment funds that you've been stockpiling or accruing and using that for a renovation situation like what we've been discussing with Sheldon?
Yep. No, 100%. I think, in a perfect world, we would be able to plan out 1 or 2 or 3 years and say, this is kind of our timeline for going into a project like this. So you could kind of ready your money, to get the best outcomes, with regards to your investment strategy. Is time frame is really important. When I'm doing a review with clients, one of the first things I always kind of ask with is, over the next 12 months, do you need access to any of your funds? Is there anything that different from, say, the current plan? Yeah. So if you knew you were going to undertake a major renovation in your house in, say, 2 years, well, from an investment horizon perspective, we would consider that to be short term. Really, anything 3 years or less, we would consider that to be short, maybe medium term, but really short term. So, we're not going to try to pay for your renovation by making a bunch of money in the market over the next 12 months. That's just not a great strategy. We want to make sure that the funds are liquid and available. And by the time you have to start making draws, to pay the renovation team, or let's say it's building a new house, whatever it is that the funds are available and you're not looking at a situation where your investment portfolio is worth 15% less because we happen to catch one of those big dips in the market. I would absolutely agree, using investments, preferably, using investments that aren't going to create a big tax havoc to your plan. You don't want to go and pull out $250,000 from your RRSP for a home renovation, ideally, because it probably means you're going to have to liquidate $350,000 or $400,000 from your RRSP, so very costly. Certainly tax-free savings accounts, non-registered accounts, maybe combined with some borrowing, because we are talking about an investment, even if it's not kind of a one-to-one based on what you spent versus how much that improved the value of your house, is that we can think of this as a long-term asset. And so you're going to get a lot of utility off of this investment for many, many years. And so as kind of Sheldon had talked about, using quality products that are going to last a long time, using quality products that can maybe be where there can be an upkeep strategy to them, much further down the road. But we see it as something that you're going to get a lot of utility from that spend. So I think the big thing would be timing, and the impact of tax of drawing out those funds, Terry.
Very good. Sheldon Small from Iron River Services, Patrick Leonard from the Leonard Wealth Advisory Group of BMO Nesbitt Burns. There you go. That's the Wealth Roundup for the week of December 11th, 2025.
Thanks, Terry. Have a great week.
Thanks, you guys.
Sheldon.
Have a good one. Take care.
This has been the Wealth Roundup with Patrick Leonard from the Leonard Wealth Advisory Group of BMO Nesbitt Burns. I'm Terry Evans. The Wealth Roundup is part of the Reluctantly Podcast Network.